The hallways of Capitalist Prime's command tower were cold and silent, even at midday. Captain Elara Miles walked with quick, steady steps, her black uniform crisp, her face calm, but inside her thoughts swirled. She had been summoned without warning, and in the Empire sudden orders never meant good news. She stepped into the high briefing chamber. A wide window behind the meeting table showed the stars, floating lights in endless dark. Waiting at the table were three high-ranking officials, Admiral Cackle, Fleet Strategist Vaughn, and Chief Intelligence Officer Dea. Their expressions were tight. Elara Cackle said, nodding, "Sit down." She obeyed. Vaughn pressed a button, and a map of the galaxy blinked into view. One region pulsed in red, an empty stretch of space near the edge of known systems. The words floated above it, Sector 9V, the Black Veil. "We received a signal," Dea said. "It's old, weak, unusual. No ship has returned from the Black Veil," Elara replied calmly, "including the last recon unit, 2 years ago. They all knew it. That unit had included her brother, Lieutenant Rian Miles, gone. No debris, no distress call, just silence. That's why we're sending you," Cackle said. "You're not afraid of ghosts." Elara's jaw tightened. She was afraid, just not in the way they thought. "Your ship Vigilant leaves in 6 hours," Cackle continued. "Standard recon, in and out. Do not engage, do not provoke, just gather intel. And if we find something alive," she asked. Dea looked at her. "Then try not to die." 6 hours later, the Vigilant lifted off from the docking bay. A sleek, medium-class recon cruiser, it glided into orbit like a silent arrow. Inside, the crew was quiet. 30 trained officers, all veterans of border patrol, but none of them had been to the Black Veil. Few had ever even spoken of it. Rumors said it was cursed. Others said it was haunted. The truth was worse. No one knew anything. Elara stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the screen ahead. Stars drifted past. Slowly the galaxy behind them shrank, and the edge of the Black Veil grew closer. A dark curtain of space. Not black like night, empty, like it had been cut from the universe and left behind. "Approaching Veil perimeter," said Lieutenant Karan, her navigator. "Bring shields online," Elara ordered, "and reduce speed. Let's not startle anything." The crew moved smoothly, though tension hung in the air like static. The outside sensors began to flicker. Strange interference. Radiation normal. No active signals, Karan said. Just noise. The noise wasn't loud. It was a low, constant hum, static with no pattern, no meaning, but it felt wrong, like it wasn't supposed to be there. "We're passing the marker," said Karan. Crossing into the veil, the stars vanished. Everyone on the bridge froze for half a second. Outside the ship's windows, there was nothing. No stars, no planets, just endless perfect black. It wasn't a lack of light. It was something deeper, like space had stopped being real. "Keep scanning," Elara said, "and stay calm." They moved deeper into the veil. Time felt slower. Even the ship's clocks ticked strangely. Hours passed. No signals, no ships, just the same black wall all around. Then the signal came. "Captain," said the comms officer, voice sharp, repeating ping. Very faint. Direction dead ahead. Elara leaned forward, visual, working on it. The screen showed a flicker, a shape. No, several shapes, motionless, far away, hard to measure. Not ships like they knew, more like perfect spheres, or prisms. Geometric shapes, hanging in space, glowing faintly. "Are those ships?" someone whispered. Elara stared. The hair on her arms stood up. "They're not moving," said Karan. "No energy signatures, no drive systems." "Open a channel," Elara said. "Let's see if they answer." The signal was sent. No reply. "They're not responding." "Try again." Different frequency. Still nothing. Suddenly the lights dimmed. The ship trembled. "What was that?" Elara asked. "Power drain. Momentary." "It's them. They scanned us." "Any damage?" "No. System stable." It was just a pulse. Elara stood, Her heart beat hard, but her voice stayed steady. Mark their position. Pull back. We return to report. But next time, she said quietly, we go closer. The ship turned. As they left the strange shapes behind, the crew whispered in the halls. They were no longer in the dark. There was something out there, watching, waiting. The Vigilant glided silently through space, heading back toward the Empire's borders. Captain Elara Miles stood at the observation deck, staring at the black emptiness behind them, the place they had just left. The crew had completed the first sweep through the edge of the black veil and survived. But Elara felt no relief. They had seen something, ships or something like ships, unmoving, silent, strange. No response, no attack, but they had felt the Vigilant. The power pulse was proof. That wasn't natural, that was intentional. She didn't believe in ghosts, but whatever was inside the veil wasn't made by humans, and it wasn't dead. She turned to Lieutenant Kieran. How far are we from the edge? 10 minutes, Captain, Kieran said, checking his console. We'll cross the veil's boundary soon. Elara nodded. Once we're clear, send a full report to command. Include all scans, images, and logs. Yes, ma'am. The bridge was quieter than usual. Officers whispered instead of speaking aloud. Most avoided looking out the windows. It felt like they were being watched. Suddenly the comms console lit up. Captain, said Ensign Vale, eyes wide. We've got movement behind us. Multiple objects incoming. Elara turned sharply. Show me. The screen flickered, and there they were, the shapes. Moving now, slowly but definitely moving. 10, no, 20 of them. Their glowing outlines shimmered against the black background. They made no sound, no heat, no radio signals, just silent approach. They weren't moving before, Kieran said, voice tight. No, Elara replied. But they are now. Should we jump to light speed? Elara shook her head. Not yet. Let's see what they do. The shapes came closer. They weren't like any ships the Empire had ever built. No wings, no engines, just smooth geometric forms, triangles, spheres, cubes, glowing with soft blue light. They stopped just outside sensor range. Then one of them blinked. Not lights, not weapons. It just blinked. Off then on again. 3 times. Captain, Vale said, eyes fixed on the screen. I think they're signaling. What's the pattern? 3 pulses. Pause. Then 3 again. Same delay. Like Morse code. No. 2 even. 2 clean. Elara's eyes narrowed. It's not language. It's math. Basic sequence. Maybe a test to see if we respond. She turned to her science officer. Can we send a reply in the same pattern? Yes, but do it. They sent back the same 3-pulse signal. Nothing happened. Then one of the shapes pulsed again. This time it sent a different pattern. 5 pulses, then 2. It changed. Vale whispered. What does that mean? I don't know, Elara said. But this isn't random. Suddenly the power flickered. All screens dimmed for 2 seconds. EMP wave, Kieran reported. No damage, just interference. They're scanning us again, Elara said. But this time it wasn't a simple scan. The Vigilance sensors began acting strange. Readings looped. Some gauges spun out of range. Lights flickered in odd rhythms. The ship itself felt confused. Elara felt a deep unease. End transmission. Back us away. Full reverse. The shapes remained still as the Vigilant moved. Then one by one, they slowly turned, if that's what it was, and faded into the darkness. Their glow dimmed. Their forms dissolved into black. Then nothing. Where did they go? Kieran asked. Gone, said Vale, completely off the grid. Did they cloak? Unknown. We're not detecting anything at all. Elara stood silent for a long moment. She had expected danger, but not this, not silent watchers, that acted more like sensors than ships. She looked down at the console. The signal was gone too. No trace of the original source that brought them here. They wanted us to see them, she said softly, but not understand them. Kieran turned. So what do we tell command? Elara looked at the crew. They were shaken, but alive. Tell them the truth, she said. We entered the veil. We found a signal. We found objects, unknown design, unknown origin. They observed us, scanned us, and left. We are not alone, she paused, and if they return, we won't be ready. Hours later, the Vigilant exited the black veil. Stars appeared again, normal, familiar stars. The crew let out quiet sighs of relief. The darkness was behind them, but it felt like it followed them somehow. Back at Capitolis Prime, the report caused panic. Scientists couldn't explain the energy readings. Command demanded answers. Some officers believed it was a hidden Orion weapon. Others whispered it was worse, something older, something forgotten, but no one had clear proof. Only Alara and her crew had seen the shapes, and she was sure they weren't ships, at least not human ones. Capitolis Prime was not calm. Inside the steel walls of the Empire's Central Command, chaos simmered under control. Screens flashed, voices rose over comms, and officers rushed through corridors. The report from the Vigilant had stirred something dangerous fear, a kind of fear that the Empire hadn't felt in centuries. They didn't understand what Alara Miles and her crew had seen, and what people don't understand, they fear or destroy. Captain Alara stood inside a tall briefing chamber again, this time as a witness. She had just finished her second debriefing. A row of officers in dark uniforms stared down at her from across the long table. Admiral Kale was there, of course. So was Strategist Vaughn. But now new faces had arrived. Representatives from Intelligence, Defense, and something more secret, Black Research Division. "You say they didn't speak," said Director Malix, a pale man with grey eyes. "No attempt to communicate. But they scanned your ship multiple times." "Yes," Alara said. "They scanned us. They watched us. They didn't attack. And you believe they were testing us? I believe they were studying us. Like we were the ones being examined." Vaughn scoffed. "Machines don't examine. They destroy or ignore." "I disagree," Alara replied calmly. "These shapes, they didn't behave like warships. They reacted to our signals. They changed patterns. They responded." "Are you saying they're intelligent?" Alara hesitated. "I'm saying they might be, but not in a way we understand." Silence filled the room. Then Kale spoke. "The Empire can't sit still. We've already deployed 3 scout drones to the Veil. 2 have gone silent. 1 returned. Its data corrupted." Malix leaned forward. "We want you to go back." Alara narrowed her eyes. "To do what? Spy on them again?" "To understand," Kale said. "Or prepare to defend. We've never seen ships like this. If they're a threat, we need to know before it's too late. And if they're not a threat, then we make sure they don't become one." Alara returned to the Vigilant. Her crew was waiting. Many were uneasy, but no one refused the mission. That's how you knew they were Empire. Trained to follow orders no matter the risk. They launched again, this time with upgraded sensors, encrypted beacons and a full science team. Back into the Veil, back into the dark. It didn't take long for the hum to return. A low, even signal, same pattern as before, but this time it was closer, sharper. On the bridge, Ensign Vale watched the data stream on his screen. "Captain, I think it's not just noise. There's structure here." "Explain." "The pulses change every time we move. It's like the signal is watching us, matching our movement." "Send out a probe," Alara ordered. The drone launched, drifting forward into the darkness. It carried a light beacon and an encrypted transmission. It vanished from view quickly. Seconds passed. Then something replied. Not in words, not in voices, but in light. From the dark, one of the shapes appeared again. A perfect sphere, glowing softly. It blinked once, then a second time, then stayed still. On the screens, data poured in, but none of it made sense. "The pulses, they're math," said Lieutenant Kiran. "Basic primes, then binary, then more complex. It's trying to teach us something, like a code. Maybe more than that. Maybe a way to think." The crew sat in silence. Alara felt something strange, a presence, not evil, not aggressive, just observing. Like a scientist watching animals from behind glass. She leaned forward. "What are you?" She didn't expect a reply, but something changed. The ship's lights flickered. The crew blinked. Then on every screen an image appeared. Not of space, not of ships, of stars dying, galaxies collapsing, ancient machines floating in silence, structures so large they wrapped around suns, symbols they couldn't read, time speeding up, then slowing down, then the image of a planet, burned black, empty, then their own galaxy. The screen went black. Everyone on the bridge sat still. Vale was the first to speak. I think it was a message, Kiran added quietly. A warning. Elara stood, her heart pounded. They've seen others before us, she said. Others who reached them, others who didn't survive. She looked at her crew. They're not invaders, they're watchers, and now they're watching us. Back at command, the new data only deepened the fear. The Admiralty ordered warships to the border of the Vale, fighters, drones, full battle cruisers, precaution they called it. But Elara knew better. The Empire never waited to be attacked. They acted first, and if they made the wrong move, they wouldn't be facing ships, they'd be facing something else. The Vigilant hovered at the edge of the alien fleet. This time there were more ships. At least 30 strange shapes surrounded them in a wide arc. They were not arranged in attack formation. They didn't aim weapons. They simply existed, still, glowing, silent. Captain Elara Miles stood on the bridge, staring at them. The calm on her face didn't match the unease in her chest. "They're not moving," said Lieutenant Kiran quietly. "They don't need to," Elara replied. "They know we're here." No one responded. No one needed to. Every crew member could feel it. They were being watched. Then a soft beep. "Captain," said Ensign Vale, "we're receiving a narrow-band pulse, directed at us only. It's not communication, more like a ping." "A test?" Elara asked. "Or an invitation?" She looked back at the screen. One of the ships, a large diamond-shaped one, was drifting closer. It moved smoothly, slowly, with no sign of engines or propulsion. As it neared, its shape shifted slightly, not visibly, but the sensors struggled to define its form. It seemed to shimmer, not like a trick of light, more like a trick of reality. Elara made a decision. "I'm going in." Heads turned, eyes widened. "Captain," Kiran asked, "I want answers, and I won't get them from a screen." Commander Hale, her second in command, stepped forward. "At least take a drone escort." "No, if they wanted to harm us, they would have done it already." She turned to her crew. "Prep a shuttle. Just me. No weapons, no signals, no threats." The shuttle detached from the Vigilant, like a seed falling from a tree. It drifted slowly toward the alien ship. Inside, Elara sat still, hands on the manual controls, though they weren't needed. The alien ship drew her in like gravity. No resistance, no interference. As she got closer, the details sharpened. The surface of the alien vessel was smooth, but not metal. It looked like glass and stone had fused into one material. It pulsed with faint light, like a heartbeat. There were no windows, no markings, no obvious entrances. Then a section opened, a perfect circle, just large enough for the shuttle. Elara drifted in. Inside, the shuttle landed on a flat, glowing surface. The walls around her shimmered with moving patterns, shapes that almost looked like constellations, blinking and shifting, as if responding to her presence. She stepped out. The air inside was breathable, no gravity shift, no heat, no noise. She stood in a wide chamber. It had no doors, no panels, no signs of technology, but she felt she wasn't alone. "Is anyone here?" she asked, knowing there'd be no answer. The patterns on the walls shifted. Lines of light moved across the surfaces, intersecting, pulsing, forming simple shapes. A square, a spiral, a wave, then more complex ones, symbols she couldn't read. She followed them, slowly, deeper into the ship. She didn't walk through hallways. The space shifted around her. One moment she stood in a chamber, the next she was somewhere else. No movement, no passage, just change. Then she saw it. At the center of a tall room stood a floating sphere, not large, about the size of her chest. It hovered in place, glowing faintly. She stepped closer. The glow increased. Then it reached toward her, not physically, but with something unseen. She felt it, a soft pull inside her head. Not pain, not fear, just presence. Her mind filled with images, not visions like before, but more personal. Her childhood, her brother's face, Ryan laughing on a beach when they were children, the last message he sent before his disappearance, his final mission, then darkness, his ship, crushed, floating, silent, tears welled in her eyes. She saw things she shouldn't have. The sphere showed her his end, not as a threat, but as truth. He had reached this place, he had been here, and he had died because the Empire had sent him without care, without understanding. The sphere dimmed. Elara fell to her knees, breathing hard. "You're trying to show me," she whispered. "Not just the past, but what you've seen, what you've lost." The room responded. New images formed, galaxies collapsing, civilizations burning, fleets exploding into silence, over and over, different species, different worlds, all ending in the same way, destruction caused by fear. She understood now. These ships were not invaders, they were witnesses, preservers, watchers. They moved when civilizations reached a certain point, when they became too curious, too aggressive, too fast. Then they came to observe, to decide. Were they tools of some ancient intelligence? Were they intelligence itself? She didn't know, but she felt their message. You are not the first. You will not be the last. Choose your future. Elara stood slowly. I understand, she said aloud. The walls dimmed, the shapes stopped shifting. The path she came through opened again. Gently, she walked back to her shuttle. The chamber closed behind her. Back on the Vigilant, the crew waited silently. When Elara returned, they rushed to meet her. What did you see? Kieran asked. She looked at them, eyes tired but clear. I saw the truth, she said, and a warning. They're not here to fight us. They're here to judge if we're worth saving. She looked at the fleet outside the window. They've seen our kind before, and we've always failed. She turned to her officers. I won't let us fail again. But she knew one thing for certain. The Empire would not listen, not until it was too late. The war fleet arrived 2 days later. 50 Empire ships, fully armed, formed a long crescent just outside the Black Veil. Battleships, carriers, stealth cruisers, every kind of warcraft the Empire had ever built. Their lights blinked in the void like angry stars. Elara Miles watched from the bridge of the Vigilant, her hands clenched behind her back. The alien ships, the Watchers, had not moved since her return from the vessel. They remained still, silent, watching. They know, she said softly. They see the fleet. They're waiting. Lieutenant Kieran nodded. Command has given the order. If the Watchers don't respond to a final broadcast, we're to open fire. Elara turned to him. What kind of response do they expect? A voice? A language? They've already communicated. High Command doesn't think it was real communication. They're wrong. Kieran lowered his eyes. He agreed with her, but couldn't say it aloud. The final broadcast went out. A message of warning, demand and threat, sent in all known languages and signal forms. It bounced across the stars and reached the Watchers. There was no reply. Admiral Tarson, commander of the war fleet, gave the order, prepare to engage. Elara moved fast. She didn't wait for permission. She opened a secure channel to the fleet. This is Captain Elara Miles of the Vigilant, she said, her voice firm. Stand down. Do not fire. A moment of static. Then Tarson's voice crackled through. You are out of line, Captain. You're a scout, not a diplomat. We gave the Watchers a chance. They didn't respond. We cannot risk the Empire. They did respond. Elara snapped. They showed us who they are. They showed me. They are not hostile. They are observing. You're compromised. No, I'm informed. And if you attack them, it will be the last mistake the Empire makes. Another pause. Then stand down or be removed from command. Elara turned off the channel. Her eyes were cold now. She turned to her communications officer. Open a direct line to Black Division. The officer hesitated. Ma'am, now. The line opened. A shadowed face appeared on screen. Director Malix. You have 30 seconds, he said. I have proof the Empire authorized deep signal weapon tests inside the Black Veil 3 years ago, Elara said. Against a detected but unconfirmed presence. Malix was silent. You sent Raya, she said, her voice low. You knew something was there, and when his ship vanished you buried the records. I have them. I will release them to every newsnet, every civilian channel in all sectors. You're threatening your own government. I'm warning it. Malix narrowed his eyes. What do you want? Stop the attack. He didn't answer, but the line cut. Seconds passed. Then a sudden alert. All fleet weapons, powering down. Vale said in disbelief. Stand-by orders from Central Command. Alara let out a slow breath. Then she turned to the window. The watchers were moving. They didn't move like ships. They shifted, sliding through space without motion. Formless but defined. Real but impossible. They drew closer to the Empire's fleet, one by one. No weapons charged. No shields rose. Then a pulse, bright, sharp, controlled, one by one. Empire ships went dark, not destroyed, disabled, engines offline, weapons frozen, lights dimmed. The Vigilant remained untouched. On the bridge, the crew watched the scene unfold in stunned silence. They're showing restraint, Kiran whispered. Power without violence. Alara nodded. A warning, one last time. Then a new light appeared on their main screen. Not a ship, not a ship, not a signal. An image of Earth long forgotten, far away, cities shining, oceans alive. Then a flicker, the same world in ruin. Smoke, ash, silence. Then a final message, in the simplest form. Choose. The watchers turned. Without a sound, they retreated. Back into the black veil. One by one, they vanished into the dark, leaving the Empire's warships adrift and powerless. Minutes later, systems rebooted. Lights flickered back. Engines spun to life. But no one spoke. Everyone had seen the same thing. Back on Capitolis Prime, the Empire told the public a different story. They claimed victory. They said the alien fleet had been driven back by superior firepower, that no lives were lost thanks to their strength and strategy. But inside the high walls of Central Command, the truth was understood and feared. They had fired no shots. They had barely survived. Alara was reassigned, quietly. No medals, no mention in public, but she didn't care. She had seen the Watchers, and she had heard their message. Weeks passed. The Empire was quiet, at least on the surface. No ships entered the Black Veil. No signals were sent. On news broadcasts, officials praised the Empire's calm defense against a mysterious force. The people believed the story. They always did. Most just wanted to feel safe. But Captain Elara Miles knew the truth. She had lived it. Her new assignment was a desk post on a small research outpost near the edge of the Orion Belt. A clean, quiet station with polite officers and no real duties. It was exile in disguise. She didn't complain. At night she sat in her small quarters, staring out at the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, beyond the known systems, beyond the Black Veil, the Watchers still waited, still watched. She thought of their ship, the smooth walls, the floating sphere, the visions. She remembered the way the alien intelligence had touched her thoughts. It hadn't spoken. It hadn't forced. It had shared. Memories, warnings, possibilities. She knew what it had meant. Civilizations like hers always reached the same point. Too fast, too proud, too afraid. And then they destroyed themselves. Unless they chose another path. One morning she received an encrypted message. No signature, no source. Just coordinates and a single word. Listen. She stared at the screen. The location was deep space, far from any charted system. A place beyond patrol range. She copied it into a private device and said nothing to the outpost staff. That night she took a shuttle. It was a long flight, hours of silence crossing empty space. As she neared the coordinates, the stars seemed to grow dimmer, not from clouds or dust. It was something deeper, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Then she saw it. Not a ship, not a fleet, a structure vast, silent, old. It hung in space like a forgotten god. Black and silver, shaped like a spiral, turning slowly, endlessly. It had no lights, no movement, but it was alive. The Watchers had left her something. Not a weapon, not a warning, a record. Alara docked and stepped inside. No resistance, no alarms, just the soft hum of energy, like a pulse beneath her feet. Inside, the walls were covered with patterns, symbols, images, fragments of languages, echoes of thought. Some she recognized. Some were human, others were not. She walked through the spiral corridor, reading what she could. Every step showed a different story. Worlds that rose, worlds that fell, species that learned, species that vanished. Each part of the spiral showed a different choice: fear or curiosity, war or peace, isolation or connection. Then she reached the center. A final image glowed on the wall. The Earth, not as it was, not as it had been, but as it could be, green, full, united, reaching for the stars without guns in hand. The light dimmed, and a quiet voice, not words but meaning, filled her mind. "You are still deciding." Alara left the station hours later. No one followed her. No ships appeared. The structure faded behind her, as if it had never been there. Back on her shuttle, she sat in silence. She knew now what the Watchers truly were. They were not saviors, not destroyers. They were mirrors. They arrived when a civilization reached a tipping point. They did not choose for them. They simply watched and recorded the choice. Alara stared out the window. She could not change the whole empire. She could not erase the fear in its leaders. But she could share the truth. Quietly, patiently, she could plant the idea that another path existed. And maybe, someday enough people would listen. Maybe someday humanity would choose to evolve, not conquer. Maybe, the next time the Watchers returned, they would not be judges, but equals. She leaned back in her seat as the stars moved slowly past her window. And for the first time in a long while, she felt hope.